Okay, welcome everyone. So if you had the opportunity to attend the session this morning, we talked about how to use Binder to make textbooks interactive. And I thought I would go through a little bit more detail about some of the examples we showcased this morning and indicate how to implement that. I have been told that the book I talked about this morning has been published. Let's see if I can find that. So, so here it is, and here's the link. I guess I can put it in the chat. Okay, so there's the link to the book. I just published it or put it in the chat, so you should be able to see it there. So this is just a very brief introduction on how to use Binder within a book to, again, make it more interactive. And the section that I wanted to concentrate on was this section here, the Python examples. Okay. So going to Python examples, these are the three examples I talked about this morning. One is how to include a data file that has been preloaded into the project. And this is fairly common, you're dealing with data. Now you can also read data directly from a URL from the web if you have that. But it's not uncommon to have data that you want to just upload and then have it available for the students to use directly in the textbook. So the key here to do that is to, first of all, go back to here. Have the data preloaded. So right now the data is, for this example, was in the assets section of the book. Okay, so this is the book. Just making LibreText interactive with Binder. Okay. And then under assets, I have a folder called data, and then under that I have a file with the very unique name of data. It's a common separated variable CSV file. Okay. One of the key features here is if you want people to be able to access it, you need to make it public. So there are several options here. You can either make it public, make it only Conductor users or verified instructors or team members. Okay. So typically you'd probably want to make it visible to all on comments or public. Okay. So that's an important key to have it available. Okay. And then once you have that, then if you click on these three dots over on the right-hand side, you'll get the option of selecting the permanent link. Okay. And then you can, so this is the link to that, the URL link to that. So you can then copy it. Okay. And close that and go back over to the book, which is back here. Okay. So once you've opened, once you have your copy of the book, okay, so now if you wanted to use my book, you would, of course, have to create your own and then remix from this book, or just create your own from scratch, whatever. And then go to this chapter where the example is. Okay. And if you look here, I'll go ahead and repaste it in here. Okay. So here's the link. I just called it file name. Needs to be, in this case, includes in double quotes. But you'll notice what I had to do was to add to this, or append to this, the question mark direct equal true. Okay. And the reason I had to do that was to make sure it's read as raw data or raw CSV file. Okay. So once that's there, then I can use, in this case, the Python library called pandas that and it has a built-in function called read CSV. Okay. And so I can then read the data. In this case, the data doesn't have a header associated with it, so indicated as none. And this data was just generated as a set of random numbers, basically Gaussian distributed random numbers. And so I can then load it and do whatever processing I want with it. Okay. In this case, I just looked at the mean, the standard deviation, and then created the histogram. Okay. So one could then say, have the students do some additional processing depending on the data. And the advantage to this, the way it's created, let me show you that, okay, is, for example, if a student does something to cause this program not to run, let me just delete the file name. Okay, so now the file name is no longer here. This is not going to run because it doesn't know what the file name is. Right? I just deleted it. So if I try to run it, it's going to give me an error message. Can't find the file name. Okay, but the advantage of this of the system is that if I refresh the page, okay, so if I reload the page, I'm now back to where I started, and so the file name, the original program has been restored, so the file name is there now. So now if I run it, it will run. Okay. Okay. So that's the main feature I wanted to talk about regarding external data or adding data from other sources. Anybody have any questions about that? I don't know if Delmar is still here to help with questions. I'm not sure how to get to the Q&A section. All right. All right, here we go. Okay. Anybody have any questions about accessing or how to access data? There are a couple of ways of doing it. This is just one. Again, you can read data directly from the web page. You know, for example, the sunspot data that I showed this morning, you can read that directly from the source and as a CSV file. And so any other data that's available online that's in a format that is compatible with one of the data types that is accessible from a library in whatever programming language you're using, Python in this case, then you can definitely read it. Okay. I don't see any questions. Let me look here. This is okay. All right. Well, let's move on. The second thing I talked about today, and it's fairly common, is that you may need a package that's not already installed in Binder. So Binder is being supported on a server that's run by LibreText. So many of you may know Binder has its own server that is online, but LibreText originally used that, but the response was so slow that they have installed the Binder application within their own server, and response now is almost instantaneous. So it was a significant advantage to move the Binder from the Binder site, the My Binder site, to their own server. But they haven't installed every possible library that Python has. I mean, if you've used Python before, you probably know that there are hundreds of libraries that are available, and so there may be a library that you would like to use that's not currently installed on the server. And so it's depending on the type of library. Most of them can be installed with the pip install command. And that's what I did with this scikit kit learn library or package. It was not installed previously, and so I had to actually install it. And once it's installed, it's typically retained for some period of time. In fact, we can go ahead and run it and see if it's still there. Nope. Okay, so it apparently timed out and had to download it again. But as you can see, it was pretty quick on downloading. And once it was installed, then the package could run to process the data, in this case, just using the feature within this machine language package that does linear regression. Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this?
Can you comment on the limitations? So you basically stored a CSV file on Conductor and brought it in. Are there other files that you are planning on expanding than just CSV files, binary or otherwise?
So yeah, so any file that you can read with application in Python, for example, again, depending on the language you're using, but since I'm using Python, So whatever language, I mean, you can use JSON. There's a variety of formats that you can store data in: JSON, CSV, Excel, uh, uh, you know, uh, whatever format that Python has a library to read, you can read, from this method.
So can you comment on the utility of using binder within the LibreText page versus just creating a notebook that's run?
Sure. So yeah. So LibreText, as you know, has a binder hub. They have installed that, and if you have a Jupyter notebook, you can simply use the binder hub directly. The advantage of the binder application within a book is that you have a much richer environment for writing the text to surround the code than you do with a Jupyter notebook. So Jupyter notebook has what's called markdown language capability. So you can generate instructions. Let's see if I can probably show you one of my notebooks. Let's find one. Okay, this is okay. So here's I don't know if you can see my page. So this is an IDE. It's what's called an IDE, Integrated Development Environment. It's what's called VS Code. It's a product of Microsoft, which is, I used to have bad words about Microsoft, but this is a package that's running on my system, which is a Linux-based system. And so I really applaud Microsoft for doing that. But it's a great development tool for a variety of software, and especially for Python. So here's an example of some different ways of doing logistic regression in Python. And so you can see, I can write text that includes a math equation with Greek letters. Okay. And then I can have embedded in that the code. So here's where I import the libraries. And then, the software can be loaded. In this case, there's a set of software, data that I can load. This is actually part of the package itself. So some breast cancer data that's actually in the scikit-learn package when you download it. And so I can use that to with the logistic regression to show, the effect of processing it with logistic regression, I guess. So the disadvantage, and this is just the results that you get. Okay, the disadvantage here is, first of all, it's relatively difficult to insert images in a Jupyter Notebook. Much easier to do in a LibreText document. It's pretty easy to generate math equations in a Jupyter Notebook, but one of the nice features that LibreText has is actually numbers the equation. It's not quite as easy to number the equation here. So I guess what I'm saying is the Jupyter Notebook is somewhat limited on the text that you can create with markdown language, which is what this is. So this, I can show you that here. So this is what it looks like in Markdown format. Okay. So it's somewhat limited in the way that you can enter this type of data than it is in LibreText documents. So the advantage of embedding this within a LibreText document as a binder segment is you have a richer environment for creating the text surrounding it.
Yeah, Markdown is like the wikis of wikis. Yeah. I mean, I like it, but I don't like going. It's never resonated with me.
Well, it's a bit awkward to use, and unless you get used to the syntax, it's time consuming to create. And once you have it, then you still have that limitation about, how how expansive you can make it. So it's not as nice as being able to write the text like here, because I can go into the editor here and easily make changes to the document in the text, and if I wanted to include an equation, very easy to do that as well. So the other thing, the last thing that I talked about this morning regarding utilizing a binder within LibreText was how to create kind of a formative assessment. And so I like this option because what you can do is use, in fact, let me go ahead and maybe show how to do that. So in other words, within, create a new one here. Okay, so I can create going to the boxes, an exercise box here. Okay, so within this exercise box, I can then add a binder segment. Okay, so I've now embedded a binder segment within the exercise block. Okay, and I could then say something about print your name. Okay, and save that. Okay, and now the student would have to go in, and I have to save this. So if I save it. All right, so now the student has to go in and add the code that would, first of all, maybe ask for his name and then print it. Okay. And so that would be, so you would just, as a student, say name equal input what is your name? Okay. And then print. Hello. need the if string. So if I did this correctly, I should, what is your name? It was Carl. So it should print hello, Carl. So very easy to insert Python code that will, be very interactive. Students can, this is obviously a very simple example, but can add Python code that would be something that they could use, to kind of stimulate their interest in the material, engage them with the material, and that's critical, I think, with today's students. I mean, if you don't somehow engage them, if you just say read a textbook, and they're not going to get much out of it. But if you somehow get them engaged in actually learning the material, reading the book, and then have some interactive and exercise, then they're more likely to learn the material than if you just give them a reading assignment.
Our analytics is able to track an individual student's activity on the page if you want. Many people don't want to. We could do an A/B test where one has an engaged environment and one does not, in order to track exactly what you're mentioning.
That would be an interesting study.
I mean, I would presume that someone has done it, but they may not have done it for Jupyter specifically embedded pages.
Yeah. So I'm curious whether anyone else has had an experience using Binder in some type of formative assessment like this.
I mean, I use it for my quantum mechanics book, example I think I gave yesterday.
Yeah.
And I very much would like to have a much more engaging upper divisional class. I would love to have it in my lower divisional classes, but I don't think my first year students, should be exposed to this in chemistry. But I think in upper divisional classes, they could be exposed to it, yes.
Why not?
They have enough that they're trying to deal with and having to, and we can make it so they don't actually interact with the code. They just see the code and they are not forced to interact with it. So they just use it as a widget, like how you're doing it there.
Well, exactly. I mean, like this example here, basically they're reading some data, looking at the result, maybe changing one or two parameters. I mean, you can have them change the way the histogram displays the data, for example. So it would with just a simple parameter change.
Yeah, I'm building a class this upcoming year, Lab Fundamentals, which is meant in order to instruct students how to collect data, interpret data, and various things like that. Still don't think my department would accept me pushing Python onto that level of students, but certainly at the junior senior level, like for our analytical chemistry class, I would love to be able to make this in there so I can crunch the data as they collect the data, because it's exceedingly important for analytical chemistry to have that.
I think I'm rather surprised, but I think that a few of the students that I'm seeing have been exposed to Python in high school. So I don't think it's necessarily
but not in their chemistry.
A leap to think that they would not be knowledgeable about some programming when they come in as freshmen.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem doing it for my honor students, but
Yeah.
for the service students that we have, I think there's a concern on it. But I love it. I mean, I thought this was critical for moving our goals forward.
Yeah. So, do we have anyone that has any questions about any of the material we just presented? Or
Do you have a
comments?
full hour, or you have a half hour?
I think there was a whole hour scheduled for this, but I thought that that Justin would be here for
Yeah, he's
part of
been
it.
on this stuff.
And I guess he got
He double booked.
listed.
Yeah, so he's doing the other session, but he said he would chime in when he gets the opportunity to. As I mentioned before, the ability to funnel these things into the auto grader, the NB grader, or the auto grade or auteur, I think was important. I was thinking about mostly within the hub, the Jupyter hub.
Right.
Is that something that you think would be useful to make these things into summative questions?
Yeah, and so this last example that I gave here, I actually provided the answers that the student could get or should get, and yet they don't, and yet if they can't, they can always access the solution to see what they needed to do. So, I mean, this could be kind of the start of how to use this as a formative assessment tool. But one of the suggestions that Justin had was, okay, what if you did something like this and you don't give them the answer, and then you have a adapt summative question that asks for the answer, and so that you could make
We can
it.
do that. We haven't done that. We can make this into a Frankenstein. So it's the top level. It's just an HTML page that we insert the binder into it, and then we put a question down below. It doesn't grade the code, but it does provide some secondary questioning around it.
Right.
That's definitely doable. It's something. Yeah, I'll talk to Jake in order to see about basically making binder work in adapt directly, and then they can code up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you want them to execute the code as a useful prompt in a question, or if you just want them to be able to write the code and then you.
So I use Python in a similar manner that you do. I don't necessarily care so much about whether it's beautiful code like a computer science student would create. I'm more concerned about the student getting an answer and it being a proper answer and using the proper equations, I guess, to get the answer. So I'm using it more as a fancy calculator as opposed to requiring the student to be an excellent programmer. So I'm more interested in making sure they get the right answer.
One of the things that we could do is we can make it so that you give a little bit of the code, like the line to pull in the data, and then you say, here's the data, write the code that generates a histogram and answer these questions, which is what's the mean, what's the standard deviation, or whatever else that's associated with it. And it has to be from from actually coding it up with the data, not taking it and putting it into some other
Yeah, so
sort.
that's exactly what this example does. I mean, I've got the data for them. I've got two forces, and I said, okay, what's the sum of those two forces, and what's the reaction force? So they first of all have to know a little physics, right? They have to know equal and opposite forces, and they have to also understand the concept of, in this case, a little bit about the programming, because there are a couple of ways of getting the angle associated with a vector. And if you do it incorrectly, you're going to end up in the wrong quadrant system. Okay.
Right.
So if you just use what's called arctan, that's a function within Python, you would divide, the y value by the x value. You would do arctan of that, and you would end up in the fourth quadrant and not the second quadrant where you should end up, because of the fact that you've got a -1 for an x and a +5 for a y. So just taking the ratio of those two, you end up in the wrong quadrant system. Instead of ending up at 101, you'd end up actually at the negative -78. So that,
and even I was going to say, even before we put in NB Grader or anything to evaluate the script, the code, we can probably wire this up into Adapt so that the student submits the actual code. So you can at least see the code and see their results from the code, or you can see the code and you can run it.
right.
And again, that's very similar to you just going into them submitting it in Jupyter Hub, that you just go into it and process it, but it doesn't have the benefit of there. There's some interesting things that we can do, I think, as initial steps to the bigger picture that we want to do.
Yeah.
So, I think Alan mentioned something in here 7 minutes ago, though I apologize for missing it. Even my programmers and CS students are not familiar with Python. It's true. I love being able to integrate auto grading. Yeah, the crude auto grading we're talking about is not so crude, but it's not nearly as advanced as running various scripts on the code in order to evaluate whether it did all the parameters that you want. Right, you push it to the limit with 30 different tests, type of thing. But we will get that going. And Carl's actually on this grant that I've talked about multiple times that we submitted a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that we'll get that so it can actually really scale up Adapt. Sounds good.
All right.
Well, Carl, we had a lot of time. If you feel that you've shown what you had planned to show,
Yeah, I didn't really have
take
anything else
advantage of the time.
planned, but I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have. And
Yeah,
again,
I
the
think
book
you did a pretty good job of.
is available. So if you want to
Yeah.
look at that, use as an example for your own.
Yeah, I pasted that into the chat there already, and then we're probably going to take it and take parts of it and put it into Insight and into our construction guide to move forward. So we're very thankful that you put that together.
Sure.
And obviously, you can do very similar things using not Jupyter, but using R, Octave.
Yes,
we have C++
absolutely. And one of my thoughts was originally when Justin talked to me about this was to use some of the other kernels that are available, R or Octave or some of the other available kernels. And I just didn't have the time to do all of that. So I just thought I would concentrate on Python. And
well, that was my dream for statistics book. I wanted to be able to make a statistics book that's really super engaging with these things all functionally because you don't really learn how to crunch numbers until you actually crunch numbers. So it
Exactly.
provides an opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
So, and I'll think a little bit more about whether I think my 4 major students can handle it. I don't know about my non-major students, but yes. Okay. Well, anyways, I think we can take advantage of the last 15 minutes and take a break. Thank you, Carl, very much for showcasing what you did and also for preparing this document here. And I presume if anyone has any questions, they can contact you at a later date. Is that fine?
They certainly are welcome to do so.
Great. Thank you very much. With that, I'll let you guys take a break and then we'll start up in 15 minutes.